Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's demo, How to Activate Organizational Change Through Strategic Enablement. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Tigerhall. Tigerhall's platform directly connects your team with the wisdom of proven leaders and industry giants. Plus, with an interface designed to integrate learning into everyday routines, Tigerhall's unique format makes continuous growth natural and effortless. I'm Alexandria Clapp, the Senior Content Manager for Learning Tech and Sciences at ATD, and I will be your moderator today. I know our speaker plans to keep you engaged throughout the session, so if you would like to interact with Nellie and your fellow participants throughout our session, be sure to select everyone in the chat box. And we are saving lots of time for Q&A in this session, so we'll be holding on to new and unanswered questions to be addressed then. And now I'm very pleased to introduce today's speaker. Nellie Wartoft is the CEO of Tigerhall, and we're looking forward to learning more about how to activate organizational change through strategic enablement. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Nellie to take it away for us today.
Thank you, Alexandria, and it's great to be here and to be back with ATD and this amazing audience. So I'll share a couple of things with you today. I'll be talking a lot about change, which is a topic I know that is likely on everyone's mind, on many people's minds. Then I'll speak a bit about knowledge infrastructure, what that is and how it works. And then I will dive into details around Tigerhall and how Tigerhall works and what we are doing in this space. And starting off with looking at what is happening in the world right now, like there is no secret that change is accelerating. I think we all can feel this and we're experiencing this every day in our day-to-day lives, at work and also outside of work. And there are things coming at us all the time, right? You have everything from generative AI, which has been the big thing of 2023. You have Gen Z entering the workforce. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about the hybrid work model still and how to get that right. There are things like inflation hitting us, macroeconomic challenges, and things are happening constantly, right? And it seems like this is happening at an increasingly rapid pace and faster as we go. And what we're hearing from many of our customers in the wider industry is that their customers are expecting them to change too. So for all businesses out there, they're looking at like how can we keep up with all of these changes to be able to serve our customers better. And that's everything from providing a digital customer experience to the way you go to market, and all of these things are things that businesses are considering because of course they want to keep growing, keep their customers happy and win in the marketplace. And when people are considering change, they tend to look at primarily 4 different areas of like, okay, we need to change, what should we change? It tends to go into either new go-to-market strategies. So looking at, are we in the right segment? Are we in the right market? Are we talking to the right people? Is there anything we need to change there? The second huge one is how do we drive a better customer experience? A lot of this is digital, CX. These concepts are big focus areas for companies worldwide. Third thing, and this has been happening a lot this year, are things like you might have mass layoffs. You might be acquiring a company, you might be merging with another company or doing a divestiture. And these large organizational changes is also a big part of like, how can we keep up with the world around us and how can we make the change that is needed? And then you have special strategic initiatives that companies are launching as well to address certain areas in certain parts of the business. Now, looking at these 4 areas and what customers need to do to drive change for their customers, they tend to throw 3 things at it. And I'm sure this is common in many of your organizations as well. They look at how can we bring in more consulting firms? They come from everywhere and it's throwing consulting firms at these problems. They buy a lot of new fancy technology and think that's going to help drive this change and make everything different. And then they're changing the processes. Okay, let's alter the way we're doing this. Let's change how we operate in this part of the business. So lots of consulting firms, new tech, and process management tends to be the way that they're attacking it. But looking at when companies are driving change in these 4 areas with these 3 different methodologies, still most of it fails. And up until today, most transformation, most big changes, most of it just doesn't go the way that companies want them to go. And why is that? There's been a lot of studies and research on this topic from said consulting firms too, very famously from especially EY and McKinsey have done a lot of studies on this. And after the last, especially 5 years, everything that's been happening, a lot of this research comes down to the fact that these initiatives are failing is not because the strategy wasn't right. Like, you can have the greatest strategy in the world, you can have the best technology, you can have the most expensive consulting firm, but the reason these initiatives and change is usually failing is because of the people aspect. It is because of the internal resistance, the uncertainty that people are facing, the mindset they're having, how they change, how they behave, how they think, how they act as a unit. That is what is making it difficult for organizations to change. It's the people aspect. As probably all of you know, working closely with talent, it is the people aspect, because a business is made up of people. So a lot of research again and again has shown that this is the reason why it's failing. So in order to be successful in driving change and be a successful business and keep up with the world, you need to rethink, how do we change the DNA of the organization? How do we change the mindset of people, how they behave, the knowledge of the teams that are going to execute them? How do we get the right knowledge to the right people? How do we get them excited? How do we get them engaged? How do we get them aligned? How do we get their buy-in? So all of these coming together is changing how the company is operating. And that's similar to the way that DNA is instructing our bodies how we should operate. The DNA of the organization is instructing how should we as an organization operate. So this is what companies are now starting to realize and starting to put more focus on. However, there are a couple of issues when they go down this route and they think like, okay, we need to get the employees on board, we need to get high engagement, alignment, and so on. What do they end up doing? And you're likely familiar with many of these different tools in the toolbox that companies are trying. A very common one is the top-down scripted town halls, right? You have the big CEO going online in the headquarters, there's a green screen in the background, there are 12 PR people in the room, they say something that is incredibly scripted, usually even pre-recorded and rehearsed beforehand. And this is not something that is engaging people, right? They usually turn off camera, mute, they go put on an espresso and do something else. Second popular option is, let's go into PowerPoint overdrive creation. Let's create a ton of PowerPoints and let's put them up on something called SharePoint. And let's create 10,000 SharePoint sites for our employees to navigate. Let's create all of these materials and put them up in a place where no one ever goes to visit them. Top three. Oh, let's send a lot of emails. Let's bombard the organization with more mass emails because people feel like they don't really have enough emails. Like, our inboxes are a little too empty, aren't they? So we really, really need more mass emails coming into the organization. Very common approach. Let's bombard them with more emails. Then let's host a workshop. Let's get people together. Let's get them in a room. We tell them everything. We go through said PowerPoint slides. And then they're going to leave and we're never going to see them again, and there is no reinforcement after that. Or they do a lot of centralized content production. So let's put together a team that can produce all of these PowerPoints, produce all of these workshops. We do it centrally so that everything is controlled and makes it very hard to be agile and change as we go. Many are relying on middle managers, and we know the challenges that middle managers are facing too, that they are usually just as confused as everyone else. And I've heard many, many stories where middle managers are relied on to drive the change, and it ends up becoming a Chinese whispers game, and you never know what's going to be the end message that comes out to the employee in the end. And then you have the different stories in different parts of the world. Someone told me yesterday there was a different story in New York compared to London when they're driving change, and a different mandate, and people said different things. So that's usually not a great option either. And then we have our lovely static learning platforms that we throw in. Here you go, you have 200,000 videos, now go have fun. And no one really goes to those platforms, right? Both for LMS and other content libraries. And it's hard for people to see the reason to go in there. So this is what companies tend to go down this route, and they tend to do more or less of all of these 7, and all of them combined also many times. The challenges, though, that we hear, and especially as it pertains to driving change, is it's very hard to get engagement, right? It's very hard to get engagement in a static learning platform with PowerPoints on SharePoint or sending emails that nobody's opening. Very difficult to drive an engaged workforce in this way. Very difficult to track. You can't really measure. You don't have any visibility on who has attended the Teams workshop unless you take a manual record, which is going to take someone's time. SharePoint has zero visibility. You can't track who has gone into see the PDF, who has gone into the PowerPoint. It's very hard to see who has actually done anything, who has engaged with it, who has absorbed the knowledge and the information that they need to absorb. There's no audience targeting. You might have certain email lists, like you can send out information to everyone on the West Coast or everyone in the Chicago office, and that's a common email list. But you can't target based on needs, based on where they are in the hierarchy of the organization, based on past history or data from your Microsoft tools, for example. Like, it's very, very hard to target the right audience with the right message. And the whole point of getting buy-in, getting alignment, is to have the right WIFM, the what's in it for me, and attacking the right audience with the right message. Then reinforcement. It's hard to reinforce. Most of these things are once and done. You do a workshop once, you put up the PowerPoint on SharePoint once, you do a town hall once, and it's not reinforced in the flow of people's daily work, because they see a workshop, they go back to the daily work, and they've forgotten all about it. And lastly, there's no agility. It's very hard to quickly keep up if you have a centralized content production team that is producing everything centrally. Very hard to keep up with changes that are happening. And we know that when you're driving change and big things are happening in the organization, you need to be agile. You need to change things sometimes every week. And there needs to be a new message going out to different people and so on. So when you have a 6-month content creation process, impossible to be agile. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a better way to do this, and we don't have to rely on these old tools. There is a way that is much more targeted, that is much more focused on what does each employee need, what does each workforce segment need, and personalized even down to the individual or segments or different dynamic groups, but focused on who needs what and when do they need it. There's something that is engaging, a way that is much more two-way interaction rather than this one-way, top-down, we're driving change to you, not with you. That entire approach can completely change. And something that is real. People are very bought in right now to authentic messaging. It should be real. It should not be scripted with a green screen in the background. It should be super authentic, just like, here I am, this is who I am, and talking to you as a human being. That is something that change should also be happening in the way as. And something that is all in one place. Why do we keep sending employees to so many different places and they have 10,000 tools to go to and so many platforms? It's impossible to drive change and transformation if you need to send them to part LMS, part HRIS, part the employee pulse survey, part some learning platform, then some SharePoint, and then there's some in the email. If everything is all over the place, how are we expecting employees to keep up with what they need to keep up with and get the right information and stay engaged? It's impossible. So having all in one place, in the place where they work, most employees of large organizations spend more than 50% of their day in Microsoft Teams. This is where they live. This is where most of their work is done. So why are we not speaking to them there? Why do we send them to all of these other platforms? Why is it not just everything integrated in one place? So that is what we decided to change with Tigerhall. So Tigerhall is knowledge infrastructure, and what we help global enterprises do is how can we help them drive change faster and more effectively across very large employee bases? Because driving change with 30 people is not a challenge. Driving change with 30,000 people is a very big challenge, and that is the challenge that we help solve for companies. Now, looking a bit closer to knowledge infrastructure, like what is this and how does it work, before I dive into details and more demo around Tigerhall. This is what knowledge infrastructure is. So how do we move from, on the left, you have unstructured knowledge to making that structured? In summary, this is how do we make it easy and how do we make it fast for employees to access everything that they need in one place? So on the left, you have where what usually happens today in many organizations, you have some PDF sites, you have some SharePoint sites, you have some LMS, some things are happening on Teams, something is in emails, it's everywhere. We're changing that where they have everything that is curated for them, and we believe in less is more. So focus on just what does this employee need? What does this group need? What does this audience need? And don't make it one size fits none and like throw everything to everyone. No, make it very audience segmented and very targeted. So making it structured. And usually for employees, their day-to-day, as it is today, tends to look like something like this. And this is a messy slide because it's a messy life for most employees, where they have to go to so many different tools, so many different areas, and there is separation between learning is one place, communications is another, their commercial enablement is someplace else, and then they have the transformation initiative going on, and they have to see that in another place. So this is what most day-to-day realities look like for employees, especially in large companies. And we are flipping this. So instead of thinking, I need to go to this platform, that platform, it's rather focused on what do you want to do? What is the what? Like, do you want to know how to launch a certain product in a certain market? Do you want to get to know your customers better and knowing the industry that you're operating in? Do you want to know your company's 2024 strategy? Do you want to learn best practices for transformation, both internally, how is that done, external best practices? Do you want to go on your leadership journey? So it starts with the what instead of starting with the how, like which platform do you need to go to? So employees don't have to run around in all different directions. They go to one place, all integrated in the place that they work, not taking them out of their workplace. And they just decide, okay, what do I need? And then they go down that path, and everything is curated for them. So that's in a nutshell visualization of knowledge infrastructure and the change that it drives from an ease of use and ease of access perspective. Now diving a bit more into Tigerhall and how Tigerhall works specifically. So within Tigerhall, we have a network of today close to 2,000 global, what we call thinkfluencers. These are people across industries, across the world, that are sharing knowledge and best practices on the platform. So this means that if you're driving a change in different go-to-market model, or building D2C, building e-commerce, or changing from selling hardware to selling software, there is someone who's done it before. But we all constantly try to reinvent the wheel and think about it from scratch ourselves. We don't have to do that. We can ask someone who's done it. So if you want to ask like Gabriella, who runs the global partnership organization for Microsoft, like how do you build great partners? You can do that on Tigerhall. If you want to learn from Simon, how do you switch to a subscription sales model? He did that for Adobe. So having external best practices and learning from how are other people driving change and what is happening in other industries, that's really key to speed up the cycle as well. So we have all of those on the platform, and they're all contracted with us and in full-time jobs at the moment. Then in addition to that, you add your internal expertise. So there's so much knowledge and so much expertise that you have internally that no one knows better than the people at your company. And those you should bring to life as well. So this is where you have your internal experts, executives, leaders that are in the platform as well. And all of these are sharing knowledge in different formats. So it could be through video, through podcast, power reads, could be interactions, a range of different formats that are all short, bite-sized, engaging formats that helps people absorb it quicker. It's real, it's authentic, it's like face-to-face recording on your mobile with a selfie cam and just telling people this is the message, this is the strategy. Or it could be an interaction between an internal leader and an external leader, sharing best practices and the insights in industries and things like that. And when people are going through these curated journeys, because they're curated to each employee segment, they're not doing that alone. It's not a one-way, top-down, consume this content kind of approach. It's very social. So people are going through it in cohorts, they're interacting with each other while they go through it. There's a feed where they have discussions. So all of this is happening in a social two-way feedback loop, where also senior leadership and people like yourselves could see what are people thinking, what are they saying about this change and how we're driving it. All of this comes into one place, so you can access it on the mobile phone, on web app, in Microsoft Teams. Everything is in one place, so people access it when they're picking up the kids from school or cooking in the evening and in between meetings and all of these pockets of time that they have throughout, because it's always there, whichever technology they're on. And then the beauty of it is that you have measurement of all of it. So you see exactly what is happening with different workforce segments, at which time, social sentiment analysis, how are they reacting to what they're seeing, what are people talking about, things like progress analytics, All of that is inside the measurement dashboard. So that's high level how Tigerhall works and how it addresses it. I have a couple of slides with more details that I'll go through quickly as well, but I want to make sure we have time for questions. So any questions that you have, please feel free to put them in the chat while I cover the next 5 or so slides. So the Thinkfluencers that I mentioned, so more details on how are they sharing knowledge, building the right skill sets, building the right mindset. Inspiration is a huge part of it when you hear from people across the world and different leaders how they're doing it. And then coupling that with the authenticity to drive buy-in from your internal leaders. So it's a great way to amplify executives that you have in your organization and leaders and different subject matter experts to give them a voice and effectively share knowledge across the organization. So we have many of our customers where they share, for example, customer stories with the rest of the organization. The sales team shares when they closed a deal, or you share like market knowledge between different business units, different geographies. And all of it is done as in very easy to consume formats. So now this is what it looks like on the mobile screen. You'll have a similar good user experience on Microsoft Teams and the web app too. And everything is very bite-sized, so easy for people to get into, to consume, and just enjoy quickly. And everything is very real. What you see here with the videos and live streams, it's me talking to you, it's an interaction, and it's something that people are enjoying to consume because it is authentic, it is short and bite-sized. They get it much better than seeing a PDF on a SharePoint site or seeing a long PowerPoint presentation or anything like that. So we aim to make it very user-friendly, very easy to consume, and short and in bite-sized formats. And all of this is designed into those trails. So these are custom built for relevance to each audience. You have one single destination for everything. So they just go here. It can also link out if there is something that is still in a SharePoint site or is a PDF document that you want to have in these trails, that can also be included, could link out, could be things like checklists and other materials. So very easy to custom build these trails, which gives people a good user experience, everything in one place, and very high agility also. If you want to make quick changes at scale, you can do that too. So these are built for each audience, and as mentioned, from individual all the way up to some trails could be enterprise-wide, but most of them are team-focused and department and level-focused and so on. And this is what the social experience looks like. So again, it's not a one-way, top-down kind of street. It's very two-way, interactive, two-way feedback loop, and it really builds that bottom-up culture of innovation where people can share ideas and they can share what they're thinking, follow each other, have conversations. All of that is happening within the platform as well. So it's easy for people to also share in Microsoft Teams, discuss in Microsoft Teams. So it makes it very, very user-friendly. And this gives you an idea of the UI and UX and what people enjoy about interacting on it. And then the fact that it is very much in the flow of work in life. So the Microsoft Teams integration. We're part of the Copilot ecosystem with Microsoft, and we have our own professional coach GPT, which also sits right where they work. So if they want to ask a question like, how are we driving change next year? Or what are the key things from our transformation process? Or what are the best practices in the retail industry of driving a brick and mortar strategy to online? All of that they can just ask in the professional coach GPT, and they will get the answers right within Microsoft Teams without having to go anywhere. So everything is integrated in that, and then also in the wider Microsoft Copilot too. So it's very easy for people to access in the flow of work and life, so they don't have to go anywhere else. And it's measuring as well, measuring business results. So you have things like progress analytics, social sentiment analysis, very popular, where you can see what are people saying, what are they thinking, what are people interacting about across the organization. Easily syncs with your other enterprise infrastructure, so things like Workday, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, easy to integrate and to sync. So lots of data available, which is also the benefit of having things like a mobile app, and in Teams is very, very data heavy, as opposed to like a SharePoint site or other tools that are not really providing that level of analytics and data. So easy to integrate both front end and back end. And lastly, we'll share the languages available across world in 30 different languages, and that includes internal content. So if there's knowledge sharing happening between Vietnam and Brazil, for example, the Brazilians can share it and it's translated to Vietnamese for their Vietnamese colleagues. And then the Vietnamese can share it in Vietnamese and it's translated to Portuguese for their Brazilian colleagues. So that can happen as well. So everything is instantly translated, both internal and external pieces. And a few different ways to implement. So we have different customers rolling it out at different stages. Some start with a very specific initiative with a specific audience. Things like we want to change how we go to market in this customer segment, or we want to upskill our partners in this particular area, or like drive our customer NPS. Other areas are things like the org-wide change and transformation. So these are more of those four that I mentioned, like new go-to-market models or an organizational change, things like divestitures, M&A. And then you, of course, have the ones that make Tigerhall their core knowledge infrastructure globally, where all communications, information sharing, transformation, learning, all of that is happening on Tigerhall and through Tigerhall. So it's really their knowledge pool in the flow of work, which allows them to move faster as well. So I'll end on a few popular application areas, and I'll leave this slide up here while I read the chat as well. But those are some of the most common areas that people tend to implement it for. And those that are in this third bucket, they have all of the 12. So all of their onboarding is in Tigerhall, the global comms is in Tigerhall, external best practices, customer engagement, and so on. So I'll leave the slide there and ask Alexandria what the chat is looking like and any questions. I know we have very limited time today, but I'm always happy to go into more detail in a follow-up conversation and speak more with all of you in the room.
Yeah, of course. So the first question I'm seeing is, can we see the list of integrations again? You mentioned a bunch of different types of integrations.
This one. And there are a couple of more also that are not on this, but that are lesser known. But these are the most common ones that we've done so far.
And how does it work for folks who have like an existing LMS? Does this integrate into an existing LMS that you have, or would that be some type of custom integration that you would try to work out? What would that look like?
So it integrates with LMS as well. So LMS can be part of those like different pieces in the trail, so it's easy to link out. For example, in these trails, like this could also be linking out to an LMS, or sharing like videos and so on can be part of it too. We experience that many want to move away from many LMSs for engagement reasons and difficult to use kind of reasons. So what they tend to do is that if they have certain SCORM courses or things like compliance, for example, that has to be there, then very easy to link out and make it a part of a trail, and people can then complete it within the LMS, but the interface is Tigerhall. But many have actually moved away from their LMS as well, as what we're seeing. So they tend to keep it for just compliance, and then everything else is on Tigerhall.
Yeah, I was going to build on that for either folks who are in that position, or maybe they don't have as much of an integrated tech stack yet, or even have an LMS. There's sort of different things happening in different places. Do you guys offer recommendations of how you could like get started with Tigerhall? I imagine it's unique, like meeting people where they're at. If they already have existing like Microsoft suite, you could create an integration there. But yeah, I'll turn it back over to you if you have recommendations for that.
Yeah, and there are many places to start. So we have a lot of flexibility on both like integrations and like what place we start. Number 1 and 2 here are very common. And then they kind of like grow into 3 and make it org-wide. But starting with, for example, like we need to change the way that we go to market, or we want to drive a digital customer experience, like any kind of business problem in a specific part of the organization, that's usually an easy place to start. We also have many starting with things like onboarding. That tends to be a critical need for many, and they want to like revamp their onboarding. Then that's an area that we can start with. Also things like we do sales kickoff, sales methodologies. That's also a popular place to start, or even ERGs. Sometimes people are like, we need a place for our ERGs to get together, share knowledge, communicate, and so on. So lots of ideas and different areas where we could start depending on where the organization is at. Because some start with like they have nothing in place, and then we build from there. Some have very commonly everything in place. They have the LMS, LXP, content libraries, everything. And then we act as that force that kind of brings it all together and adds to it as well. But very much providing this view where employees have one easy place to go to, and they can just have everything in one place, and providing these these journeys. So this is a common use case as well.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like folks could also start like with a pilot program, kind of start small, as you're giving examples of like onboarding or something like that. Do you have examples of clients where they've started with one project to sort of have proof of concept internally and then grow?
Yeah, many, and that's usually how it starts. Usually start with like some small one, like onboarding, or things like leadership areas, or like launching a new strategy. We have one client now that is launching their new values. So they've just launched a new like culture and values, and they're driving that entire value proposition through Tigerhall. So usually we could start with one and then we grow from there. And to Trevor's question on if it links to the rest of like HRS, website, intranet, yes, it does. It does link out to all of those. And also for this, like we can replace all of these in white. So replacing them is kind of like the ultimate then core knowledge infrastructure where everything is on Tigerhall. But we can also link out to them so that it's an easy place for people to go to get to the right place.
Cool. I know we're running out of time. Anything, the future of Tigerhall that folks might be interested to know about, things that are on the horizon or anything like that?
I think what's coming up next, like this year has been a lot of the focus has been on integrations, languages, and all of that has been built out a lot more this year. Moving into next year, where we've already launched a couple of AI tools, but AI is obviously always of interest to people, and especially bringing that AI into the flow of work, and building the right, not just the right checklists, all of those things. And also building out the social infrastructure around it. So like the cross-org knowledge sharing, the groups and how people interact and how people get matched into groups. That's also something that's coming up, as well as dynamic groups. So dynamic groups and flexibility on how you look at measurement. So with all of those data integrations that we've built this year with like Salesforce and HubSpot, like we can bring on all of those data points as well and provide very nice BI overviews of business performance as well. So that's a big part. If you use Google, good question, Trevor. So we actually have a couple of customers that are on Google as well. The integration with Google is not great because Google is not as extensive as a platform as Microsoft Teams is. That being said, this could also link to like Google Drive, for example, is very easy. So the equivalent of SharePoint, like that's very straightforward. The way that Google Chat and so on works, though, do not have the sophisticated collaboration elements that Teams have. But it's still like the rest of Tigerhall works as per normal. So it's just like the integration piece, but the rest of Tigerhall would work just as everything else. So not an issue.
Cool. Well, we are running out of time, but thank you so much, Nellie, for next steps. If folks want to learn more about Tigerhall or getting in touch with anyone on your team, is there a quick, easy link or email or anything we should know before we wrap up?
Yeah, let me flash this slide. So very welcome to reach out to me on email or on phone as well. So I'm on nelly@tigerhall.com. I'm also easy to reach on LinkedIn. So just search Nelly Wartoft and easy to find me there. Or just drop me an email at nelly@tigerhall.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to Tigerhall for hosting this awesome demo. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us and staying engaged with great questions. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon and hope to see you at future ATD webinars and demos. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone.